do not necessarily reflect those of Rogers nor Rogers TV.
Hi, and welcome to a special edition of Politically Speaking here on Rogers TV. This is part of our COVID-19 special programming, and I want to welcome Alana Murray, who is the Director of Education for the Bluewater Board of Education, and Jan Johnstone, who is the chair of the actual school board of the Bluewater Board of Education. Alana, Jan, it seems like so long since we've talked.
And absolutely not this way.
That's very, very true. That's very, very true. Now, Alana, this is, it's been a long time since we've talked, and we'll get into that in a little bit, but you've announced your retirement.
Yes, I have.
Now, was this programmed or expected the way you would go out?
No, it's quite a special exit plan for sure.
I'm sure. And I would say that the last few months have been exceptionally busy, haven't they?
I think for everybody across this province, the country, the globe, there's been, yes, a lot of additional distraction from our normal routines.
I like your phrase, additional distraction, but I did want to touch on that before we get into the COVID-19 issues, in that the elementary teachers have, I understand, got an agreement in principle, and it's out for ratification. That'll be done in this month. Is it correct to say that the other teachers' unions are also involved in ongoing negotiations?
The 4 teacher unions, 3 of the 4 have actually settled or have tentative agreements. And I just heard this morning actually on the CBC that OSSTF, the secondary teachers, have been called back to the table. So we're really hopeful that they will settle soon as well.
Excellent. Well, I'm sure there'll be a lot of parents who would otherwise be very, very happy with that. But there's this little thing called COVID-19 that has jumped in. Jan, how has that affected the governance of the school board?
Well, I think the overall governance kind of took a standstill. Absolutely, we had spring break, and then there was basically a 2-week extended spring break where I think that initially where there was an expectation that we would all students would go back into schools after that. I think we actually knew, especially after that the real spring break, that wasn't going to happen and not in the foreseeable future. And so I think that, I know that school boards and that's our staff were working on, you could say, other plans. I would call it outside the school learning environment, and I think that's where we have all moved to. But it's going to look very different across the province, and I think in terms of our learners and our families, we really deal with a rural context where, in fact, they don't necessarily have connections to, say, the internet, or their internet connection is spotty, or it's so, expensive that they really can't have, provide it, or our students don't have the equipment to access. But I think the other thing is about what are all our family situations. It's, as we know, you can have parents at home actually doing work from home, and now we have, students. So I think that if there's anything, and Ilana and I have talked, is that we all need to be really flexible and patient and have lots of humor.
That's very true. That is absolutely true. Alana, the question was asked of me because I know a number of teachers that they were concerned about some of the smaller communities in some parts of the board, the Mennonite and Amish communities, for example, where the technology is treated in a different manner. And has that been factored into account? We have Indigenous students as well.
Yes, we have. We have reached out to the Mennonite community. They will use technology when they're at our schools, but they don't necessarily use it in the same way at home. There are some families that have some access, but it will be very challenging for them to do anything online. So we are looking at different strategies and different ranges of support because we recognize in Bruce and Grey counties that the variability across this district is huge. And there's been many, many, many things to think about. So our staff are working like 24/7 to try to figure out some of these things. But at the end of the day, as Jan has stated, our number one concern right now is the safety and health of our families. They are going through some terrifically difficult times, given some of the emergency orders that have gone out, and we want to not add to that complexity. And so we are trying to be very respectful in that regard.
Sure, I'm sure, because it's the last thing you want is to have kids fighting for bandwidth, so to speak, with dad who's trying to work or mom who's trying to work on a work laptop, and kids are trying to do school lessons because, let's face it, our internet connections are nowhere near they are in urban areas. So we'll just have to wait and see.
I think it's that, but the other part has to do with is say capacity in terms of technology within people's individual homes. So just say you have a young learner, which is going to require a parental or more adult help. And so we have to be also really cognitive of you could say families and families' ability to actually, operationalize, you could say, online resources. I know that one of the things that actually went viral a week ago was a parent from Israel who was talking about online learning. I don't know if anybody saw it, but it was, she was saying, I have 3 kids and teachers are sending this information. And what do you think? I am abandoned. And what are they going to figure out, that I'm stupid? So, and even though it was very much humorous, there was some realness to it. That, so when Alana says, we don't want to put extra stress on families, that would be a perfect example.
Yeah, I think you're onto something there, Jan, because I remember when when my youngest children were in school and they'd come, Daddy, can you help me with homework?
Yeah.
And I'd look at it and I'd say, hey, this is way beyond what I did. I don't even understand the language. I get the concepts, I think, but the language is very different. So it will be one of those things that will have to happen. Now, Alana, I wanted to talk to you briefly about how's the staff doing? And I mean, you've got a broad variety of staff within the board. You've got office staff, you've got teachers who are sort of the front of our minds, but there's support staff. There's a lot of other staff. How's the staff doing in the midst of COVID-19?
I think the same way that many families in Canada are coping right now. They too have connectivity issues within their own living communities. They, young staff are trying to supervise their own children. They're going through exactly what everybody else is going through. And then on top of that, trying to figure out how they're going to reach out and connect with their students. They're very worried about their students, and they want to do their part. We are in the process of working through with our union groups what the roles and responsibilities will be. The focus right now is on teachers. We've heard that a lot in the media, but there's a lot that our support staff can do as well. The day's focus and theme through the Prime Minister and Premier's talks was really about well-being and mental health, and they're putting out some additional supports in that regard. I think that our frontline workers, our staff, are very sympathetic of our frontline workers that are working really hard and want to do things to support their local communities. So they're filled with lots of things. we've been trying to be very, very transparent in the distribution of information to our staff so that they know what's going on. I put out a daily update for them along with the trustees and our union presidents to make sure that they are in the communication loop. And the feedback that we've received is that it helps them to sort things out and alleviate some of the stress. But there's so many things here. We're being asked in a relatively short period of time to almost reinvent the education system, and the stress of trying to figure out all those pieces. And there's lots and lots of unanswered questions. But we're very focused on our student and staff well-being right now, and we're taking one step at a time.
Yeah, I think that you raise a very valid point about the students and their well-being. How are the students who are in special education programs? Are they going to be included in any of this, or are they sort of one of the pieces that is yet to be completed?
It hasn't been completed yet, but on this morning's teleconference with the Ministry of Education, directors were told that there's a group working on some of those parameters right now. It's been high on the priority list for directors to address the issue of at-risk youth as well as students with special education needs. School is a safe haven for many, many, many of our students. And, we're certainly worried about making sure that they're being supported. But definitely special education is right at the top of the list of priorities.
I'm glad to hear you say that, because I know some teachers and they were very, very worried about the kids who are on the edges, the kids who are at risk, because school is for them a safe place. And it's also sometimes the one place they actually get a meal or some food that they don't have to cook themselves or that is reasonably healthy. So we take the education system for granted, perhaps, but it's often a heck of a lot more than reading, writing, and arithmetic.
The public education system provides an essential social service to families, and I think people are beginning to recognize just how important the service that public education provides is to their families. And certainly staff are worried about nutrition programs for students. And so our community partners and the various ministries, Ministry of Education, Ministry of Health, Ministry of Community and Social Services, they are all working collaboratively with each other. We've been given greater flexibility to use resources that we were given through some of the ministries for breakfast programs or nutrition programs and being able to use them in different ways. Schools are able to donate some of those funds to local food banks. And so we're all trying to work together on this.
Mm-hmm. That's good to hear, because one of the things I do know is that our food bank program is absolutely essential here in Grey Bruce. And if people are interested, all they've got to do is call 211, and those links are there. If they've got questions, 211 is the number to call. And it's good to hear that the Board of Education is working with all the other organizations to make sure we've got food security in this really difficult time. Jen, I also wanted to ask you, how are the trustees doing in all of this? I mean, they were elected. This is new ground for them, I'm sure.
I think it's new ground for everyone.
Well, right. Are you meeting electronically like municipal councils are?
Well, and like municipal councils, they haven't actually met yet. We plan to have what I call, you could say, a mock meeting next week. And just like our staff and like our students, that is going to be it's a new working environment. So we're going to have a mock meeting in terms of how do we connect online and to use all the features, so that when we actually have our board meeting at the end of the month, that we're going to be able to easily connect. I think that the technology, just like for many of our families, is going to be challenging. And but I'm sure that we all wish we had with some of our younger students helping us, because of course they know all the technology. I think that, right? I mean, I was hearing about, young people, they would say to their parents, Mom, hey, I got a Zoom meeting coming up because they have been using a lot of this technology. I think it's kind of us older people that aren't used to that technology. But I think the technology in itself is going to help us and also bring us together. As Alana had said, that she has been doing a regular update with the board and board trustees. I have had, as a chair of the board, and Alana's also been involved, had a couple of telephone conference calls with the Minister of Education and also the Deputy Minister in terms of you could say, kind of the direction we're going. And it was an opportunity for chairs of boards to ask the Minister of Education some very direct questions and also share different kinds of concerns and wanting to make sure that he was aware about. So I for example, talked about concerns about equity and inclusion, and especially around, rural Ontario, and to make sure it's on his radar as we're moving forward from, where we have, social isolation, staying at home, but we're trying to provide some learning opportunities for our students that are, of course, flexible in the next while, whatever the next while may be.
Well, that leads to another question, and Ilana, this may be more along your in your area of work. We know that school will be for the next month. There is something coming into place, and I guess it's next Monday that it'll start to get rolled out. But everyone has, the minister has said, first week of May. We don't know. We're not going to talk about where we'll be because we don't know. What's your take on that? Are we going to be in basically a 3-month electronic learning system, or will it really depend on what happens with the province?
There's two components here. First of all, there is the ministerial order that closes schools, and schools are closed at least till May the 4th for students. And then there's also the Emergencies Act. It has a longer name than that, but it's basically the Emergencies Act, and it operates on a 14-day renewal process. So we've been told that the planning we did in the last 2 weeks was to assist reconnecting with students. That was the number one priority. And then we're phasing in additional components, providing time for staff and students to learn the technology, as Jan has talked about, as well as the ministry is providing online materials through the province, and then school boards, based on what our needs are, we're also providing resources, and we've just launched today some online resources. There are different platforms that teachers can use, and some teachers have been using different platforms. We've been offering online learning for a number of years now, but that there will be a range of things, including using the virtual learning environment, the provincial platform, using our phone systems to send out messaging, to provide hard copies should families not have any access to technology. And we're working through all of those details now. We have finalized our phase 1 and phase 2 plans, and we are just communicating with our principals right now, who are communicating with their staff. The third component is access to the schools. And so we've been given permission now to provide access to teachers to retrieve board assigned computers. Some of our teachers have board assigned computers, as well as learning materials and some personal effects. That only applies to staff at this time, but there is a discussion about how that might be extended to others, including students, in the future. And we must get permission through the medical officer of health, the local medical officer of health, to do that. And we received that permission today. So actually that access will begin tomorrow for staff. They can go in 2 at a time. The principal will meet them at the door. They will have to wash their hands. They will be allowed 15 minutes to go and retrieve those items, and then they must leave. And so that is the reality that we're working under right now. It's very strict in terms of these protocols. In terms of what happens after May the 4th, again, on this morning's call, the tone was different today. There was most definitely, and if you heard the Prime Minister and Premier speak, they are very, very worried about the impact that COVID-19 is having on not only the physical, but the mental health of our healthcare workers and our emergency services staff. And I think there is a culture of collaboration amongst the ministries right now to support the health care sector in whatever way we can. So we've been told that we will have additional information soon about things that we can do to support them. And so I think, people need to really take this very seriously. We need to continue to stay home. We need to continue to wash our hands and do all the things that public health is recommending.
Yeah, those are really important things, Alana, and I'm glad to hear you say that the situation is fluid, but there is planning going forward. I think that from my sense is that people are anxious, people are worried, but I'm hearing you say that planning is going forward. The situation is serious. So, but in terms of education, you're doing your very best to keep in conversation with your colleagues in other ministries, but also to make this work to the best of your ability.
Yes, our goal right now is to have a Bluewater solution and to work very closely with our community partners to support the needs of our families.
Jen, what are you hearing from the trustees themselves? Are they providing input to you and to Alana about individual local situations?
Well, I haven't actually heard too much about that in terms of locally. We did actually, one of our trustees started what he called a trustee support group. It was, a private little space, and just how we were, doing so our own, personal health. But I haven't been hearing too much. I know that one trustee was talking about that it wasn't actually a parent, but someone within the community wanting, some information essentially about using the gymnasium of their school in terms of healthcare. And she said, she kind of found out some additional information. I think that people in communities want to be able to do something to be helpful. And yes, we just have to make sure that, just say if those are suggestions, that information and those contacts are sent to the right people that can respond to that. I think at this point that our communities have been very patient. And we're all in the same boat, and they're realizing that we are, you could say, going to have something up for our students in the next week, and that we don't know what there is essentially after May 4th, but whatever, we're going to make sure that there's opportunities for our students for learning, and we also want to make sure that we're not adding additional stress to families at this time. At the same time, you could say.
Yeah, I think that one of the things is that realities of certainly rural school systems is that the schools are community hubs. They're places of activity, places where things happen, places where events happen, where the community comes together, where the community works. It's really quite remarkable to see. So this is a huge sea change, and I know everybody wants to get back to where we were, but I guess we have to say not quite yet.
Yeah.
Alana, where will you be now going forward? I guess it's sort of has your retirement been postponed, or are you going to hang around a little longer, or will it be hasta la vista, baby?
We're still on track for the original plan that we had, and so we'll have to see. We'll have to see what happens. I mean, we're here. We're all here to make sure that everything goes smoothly for not only the school board but our own local communities.
Sure.
But we're on track for what the plan was.
Just out of curiosity, will the school board be going through a hiring process? And I guess that is that a board process, Jan?
So that process has actually happened, where we went through, putting out, working with a consultant, education consultants, and actually devised kind of, a director or type of characteristics we were looking for as a board. And then there was essentially that information went out to the education community. We had various people who were qualified to apply for the job. We looked at resumes, and then we actually conducted interviews. And just to let you know, that happened on the snowstorm day in Grey Bruce, where eventually everything got closed for quite a period of time. And that was, it seems so long ago, but I believe it was sometime in March.
February.
February. I couldn't even remember.
That was February, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So in fact, we have, made a selection, and we're just at the point now where we're, you could say, tying up those last ends, and in a short while, probably next week, we'll be announcing the new director of the Bluewater Board of Education, who will start after Alana begins her retirement.
So that's the way it is.
Yes, I can't share that.
No, and we will look forward to that announcement when it comes.
Yes.
Well, I would be remiss, Alana, if I didn't say, first of all, thank you for all the leadership that you have given to Grey Bruce over the last few years. I have certainly enjoyed the conversations we have had around the table and now on Skype as Director of Education, and all the best to you in the years ahead as you enjoy retirement, which is something I highly recommend, by the way.
Thanks very
Jan,
much,
your
David.
work will continue, I guess, and you'll, as a board chair, we'll be talking to you again.
Yeah.
I also would say to the both of you, thank you for the leadership you have given. I know it's been a very, very tough year in so many different ways, and it's not going to end. The COVID-19 situation is such that it's going to keep us all very busy and very occupied for the next little while, and we don't even know how long. I want to thank you both for being a part of Politically Speaking today, and we certainly look forward to further news on how the education system works and is working in this very difficult time, and best wishes to the both of you. So with that, I'll say thank you to those who are watching, and I'm David Shearman. This has been Politically Speaking. Stay healthy.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now you're in command. Visit Rogers.com for more details.
Call the Rogers TV viewer response line, email us, or connect with us on social media.
1,000 generations live in you now. This is your destiny.